We all have our own understanding of what mental health is. You perhaps think of things such as anxiety or depression, for example. However, it's unlikely that the first thing that you think about is ways to improve positive mental health. Well, on this week's episode of GetPsyched, we're going to be looking just at that. We're going to be looking at what exactly developing positive mental health means and my top tips on how to actually do it. What's up guys, welcome to another week's episode of GetPsyched, and this week, like I said, we're going to be looking at positive mental health and we're going to be looking at my top tips for developing positive mental health. Now, I think it's important for me to give you a little bit of context about this video and about me with regards to positive mental health development. So my job is primarily working within mental health. I'm a counselling psychologist in training, and my job in placement and other positions that I have is working as a therapist one-to-one with individuals who suffer from a variety of mental health disorders. Now, one of the biggest issues that I have in society today regarding mental health is that we're very good at reacting to when people experience mental illnesses or when there's reductions in positive mental health development. We're not good at anticipating and creating a foundation for developing positive mental health. Now, that's not just at an individual level. It happens on a governmental level as well. Legislation passing. So much of the legislation and government involvement regarding mental health is reactionary to when mental health goes bad or when mental illnesses are increasing. There's few and very little done with regards to actually developing a foundation of positive mental health. And I think it's really important that we start to develop a conversation of exactly what positive mental health is and how we can develop positive mental health. At least 1 in 4 of us throughout our lives will be diagnosed with a mental illness of some kind. And pretty much all of us will experience some challenges in our mental health. Now, as we go on to discuss this video further, one of the key things that I think we need to discuss is the difference between mental illness and mental health. And what I would say is that developing positive mental health is an appropriate title for this video. Like I said, not all of us will be diagnosed with a mental illness at some point in our lives, but we all will have challenges with our mental health. Look at it this way, a sports athlete or a professional sports athlete will regularly and often have challenges with their physical well-being. They might have minor injuries, they might have small strains, for example. Not every sports professional athlete will suffer a massive injury that sets them back a year or 6 months. Now, not everybody likes the physical health metaphor when we're talking about mental health, but I think in this situation, we can understand a little bit about what positive mental health development means and the difference between that and mental illness. And it's really important that we get this message across and set that context for this video when we're looking at developing positive mental health. So, what does it really mean to have positive mental health? Well, basically it means overall psychological and mental well-being. It's more than just not having issues with your mental health or having a mental illness. Rather than an absence of mental illness, positive mental health is about possessing certain characteristics and attributes that help you progress through challenges in mental health. It's not about not having those challenges. It's about how you react and how you work through those difficulties. Okay, so we've set the context, we have a better understanding of exactly what mental health and developing positive mental health means, but how do we actually do it? Well, I'm going to give you some of my top tips on what I think improves and develops positive mental health. And my first point is to develop a consistent level of social face-to-face interaction. Maintaining a social circle is vital. And what's more is that studies have shown that having consistent face-to-face contact with people that we care about, loved ones such as family and friends, can actually have really positive implications for our mental health. Time and time again, psychological studies, and there's been some really classic psychological studies that have looked at, for example, young children who have been taken away from caregivers, or even if you look up psychological studies with Romanian orphanages and Romanian orphans back in the 80s and 90s who were deprived of so much physical contact, so much face-to-face interaction, and psychologically were seriously damaged as a result. That's a really extreme example, but we can use that example, and I encourage you to do a little bit more research on that example. We can use it to understand a little bit more about the power of face-to-face contact, the power of social interaction, and how valuable it can be for developing positive mental health. What's more is that the absence of it actually can influence mental illness, and it can actually have really negative consequences for our mental health. So some of the key points I would say here regarding this tip is to make structured arrangements with friends and family during the week and schedule times in to actually meet them face to face. Phone calls and texts really only get you so far. What's key about this tip is the face to face element. Make sure to contact a friend, and rather than just talking on the phone, say, why don't we meet up for a coffee or meet up for a drink later on today? You could also join a local networking society. You could join a sports team, for example. You could join a walking club. Anything that gets you more face-to-face interaction will be really beneficial for your mental health. Okay, my next key point is to be as active as much as you can. Now, what I don't mean here is that you need to be working out 6 times a week. Simply walking instead of driving a short distance can actually be really beneficial for developing positive mental health. Get outside in the air and do some physical activity. Simple, basic, regular exercise done over a consistent period has shown time and time again that it can develop positive mental health. It's been often described by doctors as, a key ingredient for the development of positive mental health. And when people are experiencing real challenges with their mental health, often being active and getting outside in the air and in nature is recommended by medics and psychologists just to improve that level of mental health. Okay, my next key tip is to manage your stress levels. Stress for me, just on a subjective level, is one of the biggest contributing factors to developing issues with mental health and mental illness in people. If unattended, it can get worse and develop into more complex issues. So learning how to manage your stress, which we will all feel at some point in our lives, is vital, it's imperative if we're looking to develop a sense of positive mental health. And the 2 points that we covered, just a couple of minutes ago will actually help with those levels of stress as well, but there's also more that you can do too. One of the keys here is to value your own sensory input when it comes to reducing stress levels. For example, perhaps you enjoy listening to calm music. Perhaps you gain value from squeezing a stress ball, or just making a simple cup of coffee. Managing stress is very subjective, so make sure to know that subjective process for yourself, know what works for you, and utilize it on a regular basis to help manage that stress level. One of the other key points I would say for managing stress levels is to value your own leisure time. Life is packed, and at times it can be really hard to know how and when to stop. A tip here that I found really beneficial is to actually plan your leisure time. Plan time where you genuinely just set time aside for doing nothing. Now, when I say do nothing, that leisure time can be subjective again. Perhaps for you it means doing something like painting or going to the gym, for example. It could even mean things like listening to music or reading a book. Again, it's subjective, but make sure that this leisure time is taking up with something that you're doing just for the sake of doing it because you enjoy it. As a result, your stress levels will come down and you will develop a better sense of positive mental health. Okay, my next key point is to watch your nutrition. I'm a great believer in the fact that positivity, creating new habits, and being consistent in what you're doing, having a lot to do with a foundation in actually what you're consuming on a nutritional level. For example, and I know a lot of people think that I'm being far-fetched with this, and I have said this to other people before, I find a great level of benefit when I take multivitamins, when I take things like vitamin D, when it comes to my studies. I find that when I do that on a consistent basis, I have more energy. Things like drinking more water, drinking less caffeine, which I can do a lot of. I can drink a lot of coffee throughout the day. Whenever I've reduced that and increased my water intake more, I've seen massive benefits in my level to concentrate, my ability to work, my ability to stay consistent with what I'm doing, and actually things like stress levels reducing, and as a result, positive mental health being developed. Now, I'm under no illusion that this can be a really difficult step to fully commit to, so I've got a couple of tips on how to actually focus more on your nutritional levels and see those developments in positive mental health. And the first thing I would say here is to start small. Simply start off with a smart change of one meal. Perhaps you have a really unhealthy breakfast, or perhaps that you, during one point during your shift at work, you eat a bit of junk food as a snack perhaps. Try and change this to something more nutritious. Studies have shown that diets that are low in caffeine, low in sugar, low in trans fat have connotations to developing positive mental health, and diets that are high in those things actually see reductions in mental health. People that have those things consistently in their diets, things like sugar and trans fats, actually have more issues with mental health and at times can be diagnosed with mental illnesses. Now, I'm not saying that their diet and that their food is the sole contributor to those mental illnesses, but the studies have shown that they can be a key contributing factor. Okay, my final key point for developing positive mental health is to find a purpose. Again, I know that this is really subjective, but for me it holds real value. Having a purpose in life can have a profound impact on our mental health. What's more is that research has shown that actually having a purpose in life can impact us in numerous other ways as well. It can improve brain neuroconnectivity, it can alleviate physical pain, it can improve our immune systems, and it can even relieve stress. So how can we do this then? Well, the first key point for this main tip is to be creative. Things that at first might seem strange in doing can actually give us a purpose down the long run. So my advice here is to be creative in doing things. Maybe there's a hobby or maybe there's something that you've always wanted to do in your spare time. Go out and do it and be creative in doing it. The next key point here is to do with relationships. Much like our first point, being in a relationship with some people, such as loved ones, family members and friends, and spending time with them can actually improve that sense of purpose for us. And my last key point with developing a sense of purpose that in turn helps develop a positive sense of mental health is to give back. Now, it can be time consuming, but giving back to other people through volunteering or other means can have a profound impact on our mental health. For example, you might want to volunteer with children with additional support needs, or you might want to work at a nursing home, for example. You could also help deliver food or buy some food for your local food bank. Anything that involves you giving back to a wider community, to a higher purpose, to a bigger purpose, improves your sense of purpose in your own life, and as a result, improves that sense of positive mental health. Guys, thanks so much for watching this week's episode of GetPsyched. This week we've been looking at what developing positive mental health is all about, what it actually means, and my top tips on developing that sense of positive mental health. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. If you've been enjoying GetPsyched, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, and you can hit that little bell next to the subscribe button. It's, what day is it today? So it's about kind of late October. I'm looking for, at the end of 2018, I'm really hoping that GetPsyched can get to about 1,000 subscribers, which would be amazing. So far we're at about 880. So if you're enjoying GetPsyched, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, share the videos with your friends, let them know about GetPsyched. And again, thanks for watching, and hopefully catch you next week.